And welcome back to the Batcave. Hope all is well with everybody and everybody had a restful Thanksgiving. On Saturday, November 27th, Screen Rant, which is an online publication, their writer, Timothy Mably, published a story which focused on DC Comics, confirming that Christopher Reeve's Superman and Michael Keaton's Batman take place in the same universe. Specifically, the article stated that Burton's Gotham City coexists with Richard Donner's Metropolis. When they refer to Burton and Donner, they're referring to director Tim Burton, who directed Batman, and Richard Donner, who was the director of Superman 1 and technically the second Superman movie. So as I just said, it refers to both those directors. So when I read this past weekend, I found this to be very interesting that this was confirmed. A, I wanted to see if it was actually true, and B, what was of course, the source of the information? Is it coming directly from DC Comics? Sometimes events like this, and I've noticed this over the last few years, the information comes from subtle references, either from movies, TV shows, even comic books. In this case, there was a comic book that specifically focused on establishing the connection between the 78 Superman and the 89 Batman. 78 Superman, of course, means the film that came out in 1978, and the 89 Batman is the one that came out in 1989. So what we are doing today is we are assessing the logistics of this claim from Screen Rant that is backed up by DC Comics. That both the Superman Richard Donner series and the Tim Burton Batman film series coexist in the same universe. This is actually a very interesting theory because we have talked in previous videos about multiverses and different versions of different heroes appearing in different places. So this is very interesting that this would come about at this specific time, especially with events coming to exist in the next few years, specifically with the release of the Flash movie, and also even with Marvel's products, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse and Spider-Man No Way Home. So specifically, when we talk about the background on both films, it's important that we establish what specifically the films are about and when they came out and some of the key details. So the first film that we're referring to here, obviously, is Superman the movie, which came out in 1978. This was developed by the Salkinds and Pierre Spengler as part of what's referred to as a negative pickup deal with Warner Brothers. That was basically the financial arrangement that the Salkinds and Spengler agreed to with DC Comics and Warner Brothers in order to make Superman into a live feature film, which at the time was extremely difficult. It was directed by Richard Donner, who had recently directed the box office film The Omen, and it starred Marlon Brando as Superman's father, Jor-El, Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor, Christopher Reeve as Superman/Clark Kent, and Margot Kidder as Lois Lane. The film grossed worldwide and in the late 1970s $300,451,603 and was hailed as a box office success. It also paved the way for 3 additional sequels and the recognition by the executives at Warner Brothers and DC Comics that their literary characters can succeed as box office films. About 11 years later, in 1989, the first dark and serious Batman film was released. This was developed and produced by Michael Uslan, Peter Guber, and John Peters. It was directed by Tim Burton, and it starred Jack Nicholson as the Joker, Michael Keaton as Batman, Bruce Wayne, and Kim Basinger as Vicky Vale. The reason why I mentioned Jack Nicholson first versus Michael Keaton is because if you ever look at the credits, he did get top billing, Nicholson, over Keaton at the time, which was once again one of those ingenious ways to bring interest into the film to have Nicholson play such a role as the Joker. In terms of the success of the film, like Superman, this was also hailed as a financial box office success, where it grossed worldwide $411,508,343. And this is back in 1989. So this was hailed as, both these films were hailed as monumental successes and did pave the way for future sequels. Whether or not you want to say they're good or bad is irrelevant, but did pave them. So what is Screen Rant specifically claiming about Donner's Superman and Burton's Batman? Specifically that they are taking place in the same universe. So where is this information coming from? Earlier this year, DC Comics released the comic line Superman 78, which was a continuation of the 1978 Superman film. Specifically, in issue number 3, there were back-to-back references to both Bruce Wayne and Batman in the Gotham Gazette and the Daily Planet. Specifically, the cover of the Gazette shows an image of Bruce and a story teasing his return to Gotham. The headline on front of the Daily Planet also referenced the Batman, hinting that the Caped Crusader is still a mysterious vigilante to the press long before Tim Burton's first installment. So that is where Screen Rant is making that connection in establishing that they take place in the same universe. Now, the thing we need to look at and question is the logistical believability. Could I, or could we, buy into this truth from DC Comics? Even though there is an 11-year gap between the first Superman and Batman film, they have always been thought to be from the same generation. Because, everybody realizes in Warner Brothers that Superman, and I'm going to keep saying this, paved the way for Batman to be the next hero that showed up on the silver screen. And once again, the recognition that these assets have value if they're developed into dark and serious films. The thing about what, in terms of the logistical believability, is how did DC Comics show this? Was it envisioned that someone would notice this, or was this just something that was so subtle to put in? It could go either way. I purposely feel that when you give information like this subtly, you're doing it with they're doing it with the intent of demonstrating and understanding as an Easter egg that yes, these heroes are within the same realm or universe. And the way, as I said, that it subtly mentions Batman in the Superman 78 number 3 leads me to buy into that logistical believability. When you do things like this, when this information comes out, it has to be done subtly. If you don't do it that way, and if you do it like big and loud, usually people are not going to buy into it. So it has to be like, just very nonchalantly, which I think DC Comics was able to do in this. While Superman has always been depicted as bright and clean, Batman is a dark cinematic piece. That is where you have pretty much the yin and yang here. That's okay if them both existing in the same universe. That's okay. I mean, it's no different than someone going from one state in our world, say New York, and then going to a completely different state, let's say Delaware, Cleveland, Rhode Island, New Jersey. They're going to look different. So it's the same principles. I wouldn't have any issue questioning it from that point of view. There has been an underlying belief, as I said, for many years, that they exist in the same universe. The same actually could also be said for Linda Carter's Wonder Woman, the TV series from the 1970s, and the 1990 Flash TV series starring John Wesley Shipp. There's always been a belief that because this is from these characters, these depictions have been from the same generation, pretty much a 17, 18-year window of time that they pretty much exhibit in, live within the same realm or universe. So once again, is that logistical and believable? Yes. Even though, interesting enough, last year, about 2 years ago, we did see John Wesley Shipp's Flash version show up in the Flash TV series. We did see that take place. So it's very interesting that, once again, we're seeing those connections. Once again, we keep hearing about multiverses and different universes coinciding with each other, but now we're seeking to establish, are these characters legitimately from the same universe? And if so, well, why weren't they ever... question that was someone I could see examining is, well, why was it that they never met in their universes? In other words, why was Christopher Reeve Superman never introduced to Batman, the Michael Keaton Batman? That just never came to exist. Although, in thinking about that, Tim Burton was set to direct a dark and serious Superman movie in the late 1990s, supposedly starring Nicolas Cage. It never came into existence. It was canceled during its pre-production period. But I'm curious if that would have had any connection to it. So that would have been interesting. Plus the fact that Tim Burton was supposed to be directing that film. Ironically, as I said, DC Comics has been releasing a limited comic book series for many of their heroes. They've been releasing these comic book series. So you have the Superman 78 series, but now we also have the Batman 89 comic book series, which takes place after the events of the first 1989 Batman film. So right now in the Batman 89 series, we're only up to issue number 3, and there is so far no mention to Donner's Superman. However, that could change. So the question obviously I'm raising from this and theorizing is, if hints of Batman, if Burton's Batman showed up in a Superman 78, could the same thing happen with Superman appearing in Batman 89 comic series to, support this theory that they're existing in the same universe? At this point, I'm not questioning whether or not it's correct or wrong. I'm assessing how they did it. As I said, by subtly doing this, I could buy into it. Especially also, as I said, since they're from the same time period. So why is this development so important at this point in time? Well, for some time now, we have been hearing, as I said, about different multiverses, whether we're talking about DC Comics or Marvel. Major coincidence, as I said, that such a story was confirmed of Superman 78 and Batman 89 inhabiting the same universe. The reason, as I said, that this is such a coincidence at this point in time is that next year The Flash is going to be released, where once again, and I have spoken about this on other videos, where the Michael Keaton Batman is going to be appearing in that movie. So once again, I'm wondering if this is either to train the public in how to think this way with multiverses and different versions of characters, or is it just a major coincidence? Is it possible that the Superman 78 comic, once again, is leading up to this? Sometimes literary franchises like to do this and throw hints out about possible crossovers or, connections between different properties under the same wing. Another example of this could be in the 1990s when Star Trek VI came out, The Undiscovered Country. There was an episode in Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 5, where Spock showed up with talking about reunification that connected to that episode. That I can cover on another video, but I was just trying to establish that this style of thinking has existed in other franchise properties before. The question also is, if it wasn't for Screen Rant, would this have been passed over, this information? Or was it expected that someone would find this and make it a big deal? Overall, I'm fascinated that somebody is confirming that these two characters coexist. And of course, it would be fascinating if it would be a great geek game to examine if those characters would ever meet and what that experience could have been like. So overall, I found this information to be very pleasing, provided that The Flash is bringing in elements of the '89 Batman and introducing elements of Superman into it as well. So there is a belief, there is a theory, there is my belief that something from the Dawn or Supermans may show up in that Flash movie as well. And once again, this is just the reason they're bringing these types of influences into various comic books is to train the public and readers how to think about this kind of stuff in terms of multiverses and appearing in different universes. The question and the thing you have to be very careful about when dealing with such properties in this way is the logistical believability. Because if you don't create it in a way, if DC Comics or even whoever deals with something like this, if they don't create the logistical believability of these two universes coexisting, then you could literally have a problem with both franchises and create questions within them and conflict. But as I said, overall, I'm fascinated that this was confirmed. I do hold credibility to Screen Rant, and I appreciate that they brought this information to the public's eye. I look forward to seeing if elements from Superman 78 also does show up in the Batman 89 comic book. So there's a lot of things to see here. So overall, this was very pleasing to find out that these two universes do coexist. And it's part of that great geek game of examining like what could happen if Michael Keaton's Batman did encounter Christopher Reeve's Superman, or Jack Nicholson's Joker, or Danny DeVito's Penguin did meet Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor. Those theories a lot of geeks like to play with in terms of what would happen, what would they say to each other, how they would work together, would there be conflict, so on and so forth. That's it for this week. I hope everyone enjoyed this week's episode. If you like what you heard and saw, please subscribe. And any feedback is always appreciated. Thank you so much and have a great week. And we will be back again soon.